What if I told you there was a based political philosopher? Great, just awesome. All the points he hits are great. All it is beautiful. Everything he puts together is just well versed. He knows what he's talking about. He's not, a Dumbo like some of these other political philosophers we've seen. What if I told you that? You've probably heard of Hobbes, Rousseau, or maybe even John Locke. But what if there was someone better? Someone who might be one of the most important political philosophers of the modern era. A 19th century Prussian legal theorist, Christian convert, and a fierce critic of secular liberalism. What if I told you this guy probably influences a lot of philosophy to this day, specifically conservative philosophy? What if I told you that? Well, there is. Friedrich Julius Stahl believed that law and politics were inhuman inventions. They were a reflection of a based divine order. To him, the state wasn't just about people who holds power. It wasn't a moral authority about justice grounded in something higher than popular opinion or majority rule. Power meant nothing without legitimacy. And legitimacy, for Stahl, came from God. And here's the twist. Stahl was massively influential in his own day. All right, he shaped legal thought across Europe. He defended monarchy with theological precision and warned about a coming crisis of relativism. He was one of the household names in German universities, all right? So this guy, he's pretty cool. So what happened? Why did the world forget him? In this video, we're going to rediscover Friedrich Julius Stahl. We're going to look into his life, his political visions, why his forgotten philosophy might be exactly what we need in this chaotic political moment. Because maybe the best ideas are the ones we stopped listening to, right when we needed them the most. Friedrich Julius Stahl was born in 1802 in Bavaria to Jewish parents. His life, however, took a drastic turn, both spiritually and intellectually, when he converted to Lutheran Christianity as a young man. His conversion wasn't just personal. It shaped everything he would later write about: law, authority, and the state. It was the axis on which his entire worldview turned. Stahl studied law and philosophy in Würzburg, Heidelberg, and Erlangen, eventually becoming a professor of law at the University of Berlin. There, he became a prominent defender of what he called the Christian state, a vision of politics rooted not in popular will, but in divine authority and historical continuity. His rise coincided with a period of tremendous upheaval in Europe. The French Revolution had shattered the old monarchies. The liberal movements were sweeping across the continent, preaching democracy, rationalism, and the secular state. Stahl pushed back hard. He believed these movements were not progress, but rebellion against God, against history, against moral order. To him, when politics cuts ties with transcendence, it loses its soul, and eventually its sanity. To Stahl, the state was not a mere social contract. It was a divinely ordained institution sustained by tradition, natural law, and the Christian religion. He opposed revolution, not because he feared change, but because he feared moral collapse. The very idea a man could create justice apart from God, to him, was a dangerous illusion. He wasn't alone. Stahl became a leading figure in Prussian conservatism, helping shape the legal framework of the German Confederation. He served in the Prussian House of Lords and advised top government officials. Though his influence waned after his death in 1861, his fingerprints remained all over European legal thought for decades. Yet today, Stahl is almost entirely forgotten. Even in Germany. Why? Perhaps because his worldview runs so sharply against the grain of modern thought? Perhaps because his Christianity was unapologetically public. Maybe he was just too based for anyone to handle. Or perhaps because he dares ask the question about authority, law, and the limits of human reason. Stahl's life was a contradiction. Maybe that's why he's so compelling, and why he's so dangerous. Why I have read his works, and he's pretty based. I believe there's someone I know who knows way more about Friedrich Julius Stahl than I do when it comes to his philosophy, his ethics, his opinions on law, authority. A good friend of mine, Saul, who is big in Lutheranism and Lutheran political tradition and theology. He's great with it, so I figured I'd invite him on and let him give his take. And Saul, take it away.
To understand Friedrich Stahl's political philosophy, you have to understand one simple idea. Law does not begin with man. For Stahl, the foundations of politics are not democratic procedure, popular will, or social constructs. They are theological, moral, and transcendent. He believed law was not invented, it was discovered. Its source is God, and its authority comes not from consent, but from conformity to divine order. This sets him radically apart from modern political theorists who ground their legitimacy in the people. For Stahl, legitimacy comes from God, and authority is derived, not constructed. This doesn't mean tyranny is justified. Quite the opposite. Stahl believed rules are accountable not to voters but to God's moral law. In his view, the role of the state is not to energize society or to maximize freedom, but to uphold justice and to maintain order in harmony with Christian principles. This is what Stahl called the Christian state, not a theocracy, not a fusion of church and state, but a political order guided by Christian ethics, grounded in natural law, and animated by the belief that power must serve truth, not the other way around. Stahl opposed revolution not merely because it disrupted order, but because it pretended to create new foundations. He rejected the French Revolution's claim that law could be constructed out of reason alone. For him, reason without revelation leads to relativism. Relativism, when institutionalized, leads to collapse. This is also why Stahl rejected legal positivism, the idea that law is simply what the state says it is. This was a recipe for tyranny. Law, he argued, must be judged by an internal standard. A law that contradicts God's order may have force, but it has no right. He was especially concerned how modern states were drifting away from any objective standard. In his view, when law becomes untethered from transcendent principles, it ceases to be law and becomes merely policy. And policy can shift with every whim, every rhyme, every cultural trend. And his magnus opus, Die Philosophie des Rechts, the philosophy of law, Stahl outlines a political system where monarchy, aristocracy, and representation work together under a moral framework. His defense of monarchy wasn't blind nostalgia, it was based on an idea that stability, continuity, and duty were more important than popularity and power struggles. He wasn't anti-democratic in a reactionary sense. He valued representation, participation, but he was deeply skeptical of majorityism. Just because something is popular doesn't make it right. A society that replaces moral truths with voting booths doesn't become clean, it becomes more unstable. He also saw history as more than just a sequence of events. History had moral meaning. Institutions were not arbitrary, they carried with them the wisdom and errors of generations. To dismantle them casually in the name of progress was not bold, it was reckless. For Stahl, the crisis of modern politics was above all a crisis of foundation. We replaced God with general will, natural law with legal positivism, authority with autonomy, and in doing so, we left ourselves with power, but no purpose. His solution wasn't romanticism or theocratic control, it was a theological realism, a recognition that politics, to be just, must begin with what it is not, just what we want. That authority is not the enemy of freedom, but its protector, when rightly ordered. That law must answer to something higher than the state, and that unless we recover that foundation, no structure we build will last.
Friedrich Julius Stahl didn't live to see the 20th century, but if he had, he wouldn't have been surprised. He predicted it, philosophically, if not by date. Stahl believed that once order is detached from God, two things follow: relativism and power politics. When there is no transcendent standard, all that remains is consensus, or coercion. What is just becomes whatever the state decides. What is right becomes whatever the majority feels. And we see where that leads. Stahl watched in horror as the 19th century Europe embraced a new vision of freedom. Freedom without responsibility. Rights without roots. The modern world, in his view, was obsessed with liberation from structure, but blind to the need for form, direction, and meaning. Fast forward to today, and his warnings feel prophetic. We now live in an age of legal positivism. Law is whatever legislators or courts say it is. Moral questions are privatized, while public life is governed by shifting norms and technocratic fiat. Tradition is mocked, religion is sidelined, and the state is expected to function without any reference to moral truth. To Stahl, this isn't neutrality, it's nihilism. He would have seen the rise of totalitarian regimes not as anomalies, but as natural outcomes. If law is just will, then all you need is enough willpower. If justice is flexible, then justice becomes whatever suits the powerful. From fascism to communism to modern bureaucratic regimes, Stahl would say they all share one thing: the rejection of God as the ground of order. He would have also challenged the modern West's obsession with progress. Progress towards what? If we've lost any fixed idea of the good, then progress becomes meaningless, a directionless movement driven by appetite and ideology. This is why Stahl's critique of modernity gets deeper than any politics. It's not just about systems, it's about anthropology. Who do we think we are? Are we moral creatures accountable to truth? Or sovereign individuals inventing our own? Stahl challenges us to re-examine our foundations, not just to ask what works, but what is right. Not just what's new, but what's true. And for a world drowning in noise, novelty, and moral confusion, his voice, though from the 1800s, might be one of the most relevant today. Friedrich Julius Stahl matters today, not because he offers a perfect political system, but because he offers clarity. In a time when politics feels like a war of wills, he reminds us that authority, without moral grounding, is just power in a costume. He asks us, what is law, really? Is it the expression of our desires, or a reflection of divine justice? Is the state a manager of preferences, or guardian of order grounded in truth? These questions aren't outdated, they're urgent. We live in an age of disconnection between law and morality, between rights and responsibilities, between power and legitimacy. Stahl saw this coming. He believed a society that forgets its theological foundation will eventually forget why justice matters at all. And that's the crisis we face. We legislate without meaning, we argue without first principles, we change our institutions like fashion trends, and wonder why nothing holds together. Stahl doesn't offer slogans, he offers substance, political philosophy rooted in realism, humility, and reverence. He tells us that tradition isn't weakness, that authority isn't oppression, and that truth doesn't need a majority vote. I know, revolutionary for our times. He also reminds Christians that faith isn't meant to stay in the pews. Public life must be shaped by moral conviction. Justice isn't secular, it's sacred. And politics without God isn't neutral, it's disoriented. So why does Stahl matter now? Because he challenges every side. To conservatives, your defense of order means nothing if it isn't grounded in moral truth. To liberals, your pursuit of justice means nothing if justice is whatever you say it is. To everyone, the problem isn't just policy, it's philosophy, it's anthropology, it's whether we believe that there is something higher than us, something true, good, and binding. Maybe Stahl was forgotten because his ideas are inconvenient. They don't fit cleanly in today's category, but that's exactly why we need him. He doesn't tell us what we want to hear. He tells us what we've tried to forget. And that is why Friedrich Julius Stahl is the most based political philosopher you've never heard of. Now, I'm gonna be honest. A lot of you guys are probably actually curious, what is my goal with this channel? You know, I decided to throw it at the end of this video, why not? Well, long story short is I just want to kind of talk. I don't care for all the big nitty-gritty debates people do. I don't really care for the big dramas. I don't care for even, super, how we say loosey-goosey format a lot of people do. I also don't feel like being like a pop conservative apologist either. I don't like Ben Shapiro. I don't like Michael Knowles and stuff like that. And it's not because, I don't like these guys. I mean, they speak a lot of truth, sure. But a lot of it is just because a lot of their arguments are very poppy. They're very much, we've all heard them before. So I figured I'd just end the video off like this. I just want to talk about things. I want to express the conservative tradition. I want to do it well. I want to do it well formatted. But I also want to entertain you guys a little bit, I want to know what you guys want me to talk about, alright? But if you guys could tell me, give me some ideas, throw it in the comments, that would be amazing. Speaking of comments and doing things, I know, I'm already keeping your time. You know what would be based, beautiful, just frankly great? You guys could like, you guys could subscribe. That helps me a lot, lets me know if I'm doing good. Even dislike. You don't like the content, dislike it. And I want to know why, alright? Anyhow, hope you guys had an awesome day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you guys for watching.